Welcome to the Card Attic. This is part 5 of episode 1, my review of the 1978 Topps Football Card Set. And in this episode, we're going to finish off with what I call the cool cards. We're going to take a look at some action photos, an autographed card, some photo bombs, a couple funny pictures, and I have a mystery card at the end I'm going to need your help with. But let's start off with some action cards. All right, the last set of cards I want to show you are what I think are the best cards in the set. They're fun for me, they're interesting for me, and I just enjoy little tiny details that maybe the common person misses. All right, first set are my action photos. I love when they, especially in these older sets, when they usually just get portrait style pictures of players. Whenever they're able to include an action card, I love it. So, one of my favorite cards of the set is the Greg Landry Mud Game. The Detroit Lions played in the NFC North Division, the North Division at this time, and so lots of mud games up there. So probably one of my favorite cards of the set. Good old Greg Landry. And then being a Packer fan, of course, we have to include Barty Smith in his mud game. Thankfully, they didn't airbrush the mud out of there. There's Larry the Rock McCarron with his all muddy uniform in the trenches. Those are good. So I include any of those action photographs as we go through. Here's one of my favorite cards of the set is because Roger the Bird Worley was a friend of mine. I met him in St. Louis. We were members of the same congregation. I went to church together, and so one Sunday I asked him if I brought a couple of cards down, if he could sign them. Certainly played church league basketball with Roger the Bird Worley. Great guy. And his entrance into the Hall of Fame kind of ratchets this up. So he signed this card for me, so I like that card a lot. Another set of cards that I often like is when I look at cards, I don't always just look at the player who's pictured, but I use what I call photobomb cards. Where players in the background or players people didn't understand, and sometimes they're stars, sometimes they're not, but some interesting photo bombs from this one. So here's Wilbur Jackson taking the handoff, running back for the 49ers. But what they didn't see is you get to see an up-close face view of Jim Plunkett. There, the future Super Bowl MVP of the Raiders, handing off to Wilbur Jackson. So Jim Plunkett photobombing that one. Here's kicker Neil Clabo. Neil Clabo punting for the Vikings. But we have the strong safety, Charlie Waters, there on special teams, trying to block that punt. Good photo bomb. Mark Mosley, he's a future NFL MVP, the rare kicker that becomes the MVP. But we mentioned this was Billy Kilmer's last season, and there he is, Billy Kilmer walking away behind Mark Mosley. You can just see the last letters of his name. This one's funny because back in the 70s, the afro was in. The afro might be coming back, but it was in the 70s. And this is what happens when Terry Nelson tries to stuff his afro under an NFL helmet and then pull the helmet back off again. You get helmet head. Poor Terry has to deal with that. I find this funny, being a Packer fan. Brian Bashnagel was the Bears' leading receiver back in 1977. But of course, we don't find an action picture of him catching a pass, probably because they weren't so many. Brian only caught 23 passes that year, so it's difficult. So instead, an action photo has him holding for the kicker. Way to go, Brian. Now, this one's an unfortunate one. Paul Krause is in the Hall of Fame. He has the leading interception leader in the NFL. But instead of having him playing defense, we have him again holding for a place kick. Poor Paul. This leads me to our last card. I may have mentioned this before, but Walter Payton has 5 cards in the set. He has his standard card. There's the All-Pro, Walter. We have the record breaker, the highlights card, 275 yards in a game, the flu game. And then he's on two scoring leader cards. Well, the scoring leader card and the rushing leader card. So two league leader cards. All right, now I find this interesting too, is Topps is trying to not have the same picture always used for Walter. So they have two different pictures here. But this photo, they had to go into their archives, and this actually is the same photo they used for his 1976 Topps card set. His card from last year, so not a lot of storage there for that. And then his fifth card is the team leader card. And oh, looks like Brian wasn't the leading receiver. James Scott was the leading receiver. But here's Walter's fifth card, and there he is on the team leader card there. Or is there a sixth Walter Payton card? This is the card I find most interesting in the whole set. It's the card of Ted Albright. He's a tackle for the Bears this season. And this is just his standard card. There he is in action, looks like against the Minnesota Vikings. And he is pass blocking for Bob Avellini. But what's interesting about this is when you start to count legs and arms and numbers, you suddenly think there's something missing. All right, so here's Ted Albright. He's number 64, and here's his two knees. Here's his two arms. You can see that pretty easily. But when you start counting legs down here for Bob Avellini, you get one leg here, his hamstring in back, and then another leg way back here. I get Bob with three legs. And not only that, when you start to look at numbers, Ted Albright's number is 64. Bob Avellini wears just number 7. So what's this number 3 doing right up here? And look, there's a whole extra arm with an elbow pad. What's up with that? I believe that this is Walter Payton airbrushed out of his 6th Topps card in the 1978 set. I mean, when you look at that leg, either Bob Avellini has that leg, his hip out of socket, or that's an extra player. Now, this player has a little pouch here. It's cold. It's a snow game. So I don't know if Walter ever wore a pouch. See, now, here's the thing. There were 3 running backs for the Bears that year that had number 3 in their number. Roland Harper was 35. And Robin Earl was 39. Walter was 34. So I don't know which of the 3 it is, but I'm banking on Walter that he's going into pass blocking protection for Bob Avellini there. So if you are a representative of Topps or you know anything else about this card that you could help me solve the mystery as to whether this is Walter Payton airbrushed out of his 6th card or not, I would like to know. This concludes part 5 of episode 1, my review of the 1978 Topps football card set. This segment included my review of action cards, the autograph card, any photo bombs, some funny cards, and that pesky card 298, the mystery behind that card, that ghost player. If you have any comments or thoughts on any one of the segments, please let me know. And thank you for visiting the Card Attic.